Welcome to the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers as we get set for today's show, Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. And we'll look back at that ugly game in Boston between the Celtics and Heat last night. Celtics even up the series at 2-2. You have Warriors-Mavs tonight. Golden State can sweep Dallas and advance to the NBA Finals. First time since 2019. So let's get to all of the conversation. Stephanie Otey is here, and we have Chris Farley joining us, who we always enjoy having on the show, Farley Bets. You can find him on Twitter. And I'll tell you something, everyone. These playoffs, at least the conference finals, they have not been that fun, at least to watch. You've had a lot of blowouts.
Fun.
What are you having fun for? Dallas is down 3-0. There's no fun for you.
Until now. But it was fun. It was fun to.
It was fun. It was. Chris, so last night, Celtics beat the Heat 102-82. Celtics were up 18-1 out of the gate. Tyler Hero didn't play. No Heat starters were in double figures. It kind of felt like it was done about 8 minutes in. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, it was a wild game to watch. I think I don't even know what to say to start off. I mean, the Heat scored their first point, I believe, with like 5 minutes into the game. Yeah, they just looked like they were barely there to show up. But then, the Celtics team, I mean, I had the Celtics, circled in that game. Obviously, that's a spot where the Celtics need to win. You don't want to go back to Miami down 3-1. But the way that Boston came out wasn't a surprise. But Boston didn't really – they shot pretty poorly throughout that entire game. It's not like they had a great offensive game either. It's just the Heat couldn't make a basket. The Heat looked tired. They're all banged up right now. Tyler Hero out obviously makes a difference too. Jimmy Butler didn't look like himself. No show kind of from Bam Adebayo again. 18 points, like you said, Kevin. 18 total points from the starters on the Heat, and two of those players didn't score a single point on their starting roster. So that's just, I mean, I don't think we can count on that happening again for Miami, especially when it goes back to Miami. Got to expect some positive regression there. But, it's hard to know what to think after that kind of product when you're watching these NBA playoffs, because it's supposed to be a little bit higher quality basketball.
Chris, we keep talking about how each team has their guy. Jason Tatum outscores the entire starting five for the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler goes from a 41-point game to single digits last night. He didn't give it much of an excuse last night. He puts up 6 points, only played 27 minutes. But do you think the knee was an excuse for him, or he didn't really offer anything? So what do you think went wrong with Jimmy last night?
Yeah, he didn't really offer much. I don't know. I wish I had a better idea. But Jimmy's games have kind of been up and down throughout the entire postseason. We saw him really take control in one of these games, and then it's just hot and cold. We kind of see that from Bam Adebayo too. I mean, make no mistake about it. Jimmy Butler is banged up. His knee is not 100%. Probably a lot of other parts of his body that's not 100% at this point in the playoffs. And every game between these two teams, the way they can play defense, how physical they are, it's just going to take a toll on these players, right? So it's going to be about who can maintain their physical health, who can stay in the game. Obviously, even without Marcus Smart, the Celtics did well last night. They did enough, but I don't know. I mean, game to game is tough to expect. It's almost like you want to take the team in the next game always throughout the NBA playoffs who looked really bad in the previous game, because that's one pattern we've seen, right? At least in the first half of some of these games, after a poor performance, the team is going to come out and play better. I expect that from Jimmy Butler too. But, when you're getting banged up in every other game, maybe you just kind of, settle in and settle back a little bit. It just wasn't a great spot for the Heat too. I know every spot in the playoffs should be a game where a team plays max effort. Every player plays max effort. But they're in Boston, right? They're all banged up. They know the series is going back home. They have home court advantage again. So I try not to overthink these things, but man, the Heat did not look good in any regard yesterday.
What do you make, Chris, of it's being talked about all the time about Boston's won every quarter except for 3 of them so far, and yet the series is tied at 2 games apiece. A couple quarters have been tied, but that the Heat had the big third quarter in game 1. They outscored them in the fourth quarter last night. They had a big quarter in game 3 in the first quarter, but then it's been like all Celtics every other quarter. Do you make anything out of that, or it doesn't really matter?
Yeah, I make a lot out of that. I think it's really important that the Miami Heat start off in control of the game. We've seen when Boston takes control of that first quarter, and we've seen that for Boston throughout the entire playoffs. When they can control the pace and when they're doing well on offense and they're efficient, then they can get back to their half-court sets. They can play the defense that they want to play, and they are a really, really tough defense to infiltrate in those cases. It's going to be even tougher when you don't have your main three-point shooter in Tyler Hero in the lineup too, right? So the Miami Heat, I think it was no coincidence that they really succeeded in the first quarter of Game 3, and then ended up winning that game. They need to do that. They need to establish the pace. They need to establish the physicality in the game. Boston needs to be punched in the mouth because this is a group of extremely talented players in Boston. I mean, I think overall they're still the more talented team, and I think that shows. But the Heat have the experience, right? The Heat have more veteran players. A lot of these guys have been there before. So if they can take control of the game and kind of punch Boston in the mouth, I think that just throws Boston out or throws Boston off. When they can get in sync though and in rhythm, that Boston offense was the number one offense to end the season for a good month plus. So they are a very talented offense too, and they're just going to be, tough to mark off their spots if they start hot.
Yeah, Celtic, great on both ends of the ball. Their defense has been phenomenal all season. We talked previously on the show about how consistency tends to win NBA finals, but in any other sport, usually it's defense wins championships, but Celtics seem to have both. So do you think the Heat can rise to the occasion and play in clutch spots, or are you going to rely on the consistent team?
I think the Miami Heat are going to rise up in Game 5. I think in Miami, they're going back home. Spoelstra is always good at making those adjustments after a really bad game. At the same time, one of the criticisms of Eric Spoelstra and this Miami Heat team is their personality, like we've noted, is just hot and cold, right? So they can look like one of the best teams in the NBA, and they can look like last night where you're left wondering, why is this team even here in the playoffs? So yes, I do. I think that Miami can rise to the occasion. I think they will back at home. But it is really vitally important for the Miami Heat to win this next game. You do not want to go back to Boston down 3-2. Boston's on their home floor. There's a much better chance that they gain an early lead. There's a much better chance that they settle in with their confidence in a game like that. And the Miami Heat, if there's one thing that we know about them this year, when they are playing from behind, they don't have the type of explosive offense to be able to do that. They're probably not going to catch up against an offense that's as efficient and as talented as the Boston Celtics. So that's why I think it's so important for them to get off to a hot start. But that's easier for them to do at home.
What do you make, Chris, of the free throw disparity? Was it 32-8 last night as far as made free throws in favor of Boston?
Yes, and 68-28 free throw attempts in the last two games. Yesterday was a Scott Foster game, so we can be conspiratorial about that if we want. But Scott Foster likes to extend those games. But I don't know, man. I mean that there has to be a red flag or like an exclamation point a little bit for that, right? That is a huge disparity. We're talking about 40 more free throw attempts, 20 more per game in the last two games for the Boston Celtics. Last time I checked, both teams are playing very physical. Both teams are contending almost every shot. So one of the things I liked about yesterday's game was the chances of Boston getting to the free throw line. That certainly happened. I thought that would drive up the score a little bit more. Of course, you can't really anticipate a Miami Heat team having like 1 point, halfway into the quarter. But yeah, the free throw disparity is strange. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, guys, but man, these refs seem to be a little inclined to call those penalties more for the Boston Celtics. I think if this thing evens out a little bit more, it's at least a little bit of a closer contest in some of these games.
Yeah, this is going to be a tight one. And I kept saying whoever won the Celtics and Bucks series would go on to win it all. I want to root for the Heat here, but do you think that the Eastern Conference champion will win it all? And do you see this series going to 7 games?
Yeah, that's what I used to say too. Of course, I thought it was going to be the Celtics and the Bucks in this spot. But the Celtics took care of business in the previous round. But I think the Golden State Warriors are a team that the two teams in the East should fear. And that is because of what we've seen from the Golden State Warriors, especially against this Mavericks team who was riding a good bit of momentum into this series. and we've seen Golden State kind of fall a few times in the playoffs against Memphis, against Denver. But when they need to win, when they need to step up, right? The probably the best bet in the NBA playoffs so far has been the Golden State Warriors to win the third quarter. I don't know offhand how many third quarters they won, but it's way more than they lost. And we've seen it time and time again in the series against the Dallas Mavericks. I would not be shocked again if the Warriors won the third quarter again tonight. I wouldn't be shocked if they were trailing leading into that third quarter. But, the greater point here is that the Golden State Warriors just had that championship DNA, and now you have players like Kevon Looney stepping up. You got players like Andrew Wiggins, who, he is obviously a young player, a new all-star, and wasn't really showing up in the beginning of the NBA playoffs, but now kind of hitting his stride. I mean, he is covering Luka, and obviously we're going to talk more about that game, but he is covering Luka full court every game, and he's not running out of energy. So if you have players like that stepping up, along with Draymond and Steph and Clay and Jordan Poole and what he can do, and just some of the playoff experience of these guys, I give them as good of a chance as any team in the NBA playoffs to win it all. I know that might be a little boring for some fans. Here come the Golden State Warriors again, but they have that championship DNA for a reason. You're going to have to knock them off their pedestal.
So looking ahead to tonight now, Chris, Golden State trying to get the sweep. Dallas was laying 3 in game 3. Now it's down to 1.5. And Golden State rolled them in game 1. Dallas couldn't hit anything. Game 2, you're up 20 in the second quarter. You mentioned the third quarter, how bad or how good it's been for Golden State. I'll say how bad it's been for Dallas in the series. But Dallas does nothing offensively, and then Golden State covers that game. And then in game 3, Golden State had an early lead. Dallas came back. They were up 7-8, and then Golden State cut the deficit down. They took the lead and were up for good. Is Dallas shot at this point? That Luka can only do so much. Dinwiddie had a good game. Brunson had a good game. Reggie Bullock did nothing. He was 0 of 10. But you see this Golden State team. We know the guys. We know what they've done over the years. That how can you make an argument to lay points here with Dallas trying to keep their season going?
Yeah, well, the only argument that I can make, and you're right, it's a tough argument to make, right? Because we've seen the Warriors take control of this series many times over, and it's like, well, are the Dallas Mavericks done? Something I'm looking at here today is what I talked about in the past, which is that the Warriors in these elimination games, right? They can win the series on the road. Apparently, the Warriors don't like to do that. They like to go back home. And they like to win it at their home arena at the Chase Center. We saw that in game 4 against Denver, right? They could have swept that series. They were outscored 63-52 in the first half, allowed 56% from the field, 48% from beyond the arc. Jokic had 37 points, shot 66% from the field in that game. We saw the same thing at Memphis in game 5. The Warriors can close out that series. They were outscored 77-50 in the first half. Allowed 48% from the field, 44% from three-point land. Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson had huge games. So it's just one of these things where the Warriors just allow more offense when they're on the road and they can close the series. I don't know what's going on there, but Draymond Green talked about it in his podcast after the last game, saying that we know that we just have to weather the storm when the Mavericks come out for game 4, right? Because obviously the Mavericks are going to come out desperate, aggressive, and we have to expect to some degree that they're going to shoot better. I mean, for what it's worth, they had a ton of open looks in game 3. They just weren't hitting those shots. So it did feel like the Warriors were kind of laying the red carpet for the Mavericks again, to win a game at home and to, potentially even up the series in game 4. The Mavericks just weren't stepping up. They just weren't hitting their shots. I think they're going to get opportunities again tonight. They should come out the more aggressive team. And when Golden State plays on the defensive, right, kind of more passive, they're just not as good of a team. They're not as crisp. So if I'm looking to play the Mavericks tonight, I still lean the Mavericks full game. That's a tough bet to take at this point. So I would look at first quarter and first half bets on the Mavericks because, like we saw in game 2 where they dominated that game in the first half, they can show up and play really aggressive. As long as they're getting more efficiency, especially from those perimeter shots, they should be able to stay ahead of Golden State, especially with Luka and hopefully Jalen Brunson and, some others finding some kind of rhythm. I mean, some kind of rhythm would be nice because they just could not hit a bucket in that last game.
Yeah, their shooting was an issue. Luka didn't play his best game, and when your best guy's not playing his best game, it it kind of all goes south. But going 0-3 at home, all the pressure's on at this game. Still, they're only laying 1.5 points. Looking at the way that they were shooting so many threes, we know Steph Curry can shoot the three, but the Mavs 13-45 they're in game 3. Do you think that they should try to get closer to the net, or should they keep taking these shots? I mean, they're getting open, but do you think that they should continue shooting the three so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just one of the weaknesses of the Dallas Mavericks at this point, right? They really don't have a big man who can consistently score. They traded away Kristaps Porzingis earlier this year. I think that was a good trade for them. Kristaps is a good offensive shooter from the perimeter, but he doesn't give them much in the front court. Of course, that brought over Spencer Dinwiddie, Davis Bertans, and they played well. But Dwight Powell, who they start at center, he's been pretty good on defense, but he's not going to offer a lot on offense. And when you have Kevon Looney playing the way that he's playing, he's playing some of the best basketball that he's played in his career. And it's kind of cool to listen to Draymond Green on his podcast talk about how confident they are in him. 12 blocks in that last game. He's getting a ton of offensive rebounds. The Dallas Mavericks just need more presence in the paint. I'm not sure if they have the personnel, though. At this point, it's going to be a requirement. They live and die by that three, and it's going to be a requirement to make those threes at least a little bit better in this game to stay in the contest. They have a pretty pedestrian offense, right? They just kind of drive into the paint and they pop it out and they try to hit those threes, but it's almost all they do. And for as adept as Jason Kidd has been adjusting on defense, I don't know how brilliant of an offensive mind he is. At least for this team, I haven't seen a ton of adjustments. So then it just becomes about Luka doing everything, Jalen Brunson doing everything, and that's really, that's when they really stumble. But as long as they can get in a rhythm, and they are at home, so the opportunity to get in a rhythm behind your home crowd should be there. So I'm laying some bets on the Mavericks early. It's scary, Steph. It's scary, Kevin. But at least hopefully they have a better shot in this game.
Well, the other thing I look at too, Chris, is this is only the second time in the playoffs that the Warriors are an underdog. And we talked about this before the show, that the matchup with Dallas and Golden State, we know Dallas is good enough to hang with them. We've seen it in games 2 and game 3. This isn't like Golden State is steamrolling them all the way through. Dallas blew game 2. Game 3, if they would have played a little better to start the third quarter, it could have been different. But when you look at the last series, people were talking about Golden State Phoenix in the Western Conference Finals, that it was a shoo-in. It was going to happen. But then Dallas shocked Phoenix in game 7 with the blowout. You play that game 7 10 more times, maybe Dallas beats Phoenix, but they're not beating them by 30. That it's funny how Phoenix was laying points at Dallas early on in that series, and how in game 3, Dallas is laying points to Golden State and then laying points again now at home, even though they're down 3-0.
Yeah, that is interesting. The line is telling you everything here, but the line is also a little, it feels like bait a little bit too, right? I mean, taking the Mavericks full game, again, the halftime adjustments that Steve Kerr is able to make, it's almost, there's no such thing in this industry as a lock. But the Golden State Warriors, especially when they're trailing, like if they're trailing by any margin at the start of the third quarter, I would expect them to come out and win that quarter. It's just how they do business. I mean, Draymond Green changes up some of the things he does on defense. They change up some of their schemes. They're going like 2-2-1 zone, 3-2 zone, man to man. I mean, they're switching it up sometimes and multiple times every quarter. And I think that really throws off Dallas because they don't really know what's coming at them. Luka's basketball IQ is as high as any player in the NBA. I think that's obvious at this point. But when you're switching defenses as much as the Golden State Warriors have, it's just really hard to dissect, right? Especially on the fly. The line is telling me, right, across the board, these lines are telling me, especially with a total that's still relatively low for some of the higher points that we saw in this series, that this is a game that Dallas should be able to control. And I completely agree with you guys. I mean, this is a Dallas Mavericks team who is absolutely capable. They have the talent. They have the defense. But the most important thing for them is to get in a rhythm so that they can settle into those half-court defensive sets. Because if the Warriors just have that magic about them where they can, pass the ball around, it's so fluid, it's so quick and they play small ball really well. Somehow they're getting way more offensive rebounds than Dallas, even though they're smaller. I mean, I'm not sure how they even create that. Maybe it's just an effort thing because they're throwing Dallas off. But Dallas, when they're in rhythm, looks like a top 5 NBA team. When they're off rhythm, they look like a mediocre team. And I just think it all starts there. So I wouldn't be, putting a 5-unit play on the Mavericks tonight. But again, I do think this is probably the spot to at least pick them maybe in some of those derivative early bets.
Have you looked at any props for tonight? Just scrolling through, looking at some of them. Like Luka right now is set for 34.5 points. I think he'll have a big night. That number is just a little too perfect, I feel like. That's it. So do you like an over and under there?
Yeah, it was 33.5 in the last game. So now it's up even more. Dallas with their backs against the wall. So I guess there's going to be more, even more of an onus on Luka. But I'm going to go with Jalen Brunson. He scored 20 points in that previous game. His point prop was at 20.5. So I took that bet over. So that was unfortunate. But he is as key to the Dallas Mavericks. He is their number 2 player. Obviously, Luka is their most important player, but he is their surefire number 2 player now. So when Luka's not on the court or when they need some kind of, stimulant to get their offense going, Jalen Brunson has been the one to be the aggressor, to drive into the paint, and to either get those layups or to pop it out to somebody else. I like a lot of Jalen Brunson props tonight. I would consider taking his points and assist prop as well. When it's not Luka that's completely handling the ball, which sometimes Luka does, right? Sometimes Luka can really slow down that offense, and everybody trusts him, so that's okay because he's, he is Luka for a reason. But I think that Jalen Brunson is going to have to play a bigger role for the Mavericks to win this game. So I like his points prop. The fact that it's still at 20 and he just got just under 20.5 in that last game. Again, backs against the wall. Let's go, Jalen Brunson. Step it up along with Luka, and let's see your game in the 20s. But I could see that coming too for Spencer Dinwiddie again. I'm not sure where his line is, but if it's under 15, that's probably another good bet.
Are you looking at any live betting opportunities tonight, Chris, just because we've seen the swings during this series?
Absolutely. I'm expecting, again, for the Mavericks to be winning at the half. And I don't know if I can expect for the Warriors to win this because of the things that I said previously, how they kind of don't show up in these situations. But is it probably a smart bet to, if there's some kind of inflated live line because they're down by 10, 15 points, and it's at the start of the third quarter, it's probably a good idea just to hedge your bets and take a little Warriors live money line because we've seen it time and time again, right? I mean, the evidence is there that they can make those adjustments and do it. I would also look at the total. If this game starts off low scoring, Golden State coming back into the game usually means a lot more pace, a lot more fluidity, and a lot more points. So if you see that total drop under the 210s, or even close to 200, if this game goes really slow, I think that could be a great opportunity to grab a live total over.
Looking at the money line, I don't see why take either. Right now, Golden State minus 105, Mavs minus 115. Money line doesn't look appealing to me on either side just because of that. Because it flip-flops. The Mavs, their spread is minus 105, while the Warriors money line is minus 105. And then it reverses for Warriors, spread minus 115, Mavs outright minus 115. So looking at how that crisscross works, how would you hedge that out?
Oh, man, that's a tough question, Stephanie.
Points.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to do what I'm planning on doing, which is, I'm going to take the Mavericks early, and I'm probably just going to sprinkle a little something, half a unit or so on the Warriors, especially if that live line or that live money line is really inflated. I don't really want to do it, because I want to see this at least go another game, a little bit of competition here. But yeah, these lines are really funny because to me, the bookmakers are telling us that while this is probably, we thought it was game 3, but if this ain't the game that the Mavericks are going to win, I don't know what game is. But at the same time, how can you trust the Mavericks, right? Because we just keep on seeing the same thing. So the books are kind of giving you both sides. I don't want to take the bait full game just yet because even though it's a really good line, money line, minus 115 ain't that bad, right? But I think there's a chance that the Mavericks can go up by a ton of points in the beginning as the aggressor based on what we've seen from the Warriors' previous games. And then you're just getting way more value on the Warriors live. And you're getting even better value if you bet those derivative first quarter and first half bets in the Mavericks.
Do you are you looking ahead to any future bets as far as laying a short number with Golden State to win the title and try to jump on it now?
I'm not a huge futures guy in general, just because, it's a case study thing, right? For each futures, there's just an exponential amount of things that can happen that can, really throw that futures bet off, right? And then it's really tough to predict those things. But that's the case with all futures. I haven't looked at it yet. I would actually look for maybe if the Golden State Warriors sweep this series, I would look to go in the first game. Whoever wins the East, I would go. I would want to bet on the team in the Eastern Conference, because what the Golden State Warriors have shown us is they have a proclivity to get a little too confident, a little too full of themselves, maybe, assuming that they're going to win the series, and then they get punched in the mouth, right? So this can be a very physical series in the East, as long as there's not a ton of injuries, and I would expect that Eastern team to come out on fire in the first game of the finals. But I'm not going to play any futures yet. Probably the best value, I mean, I guess this is fairly obvious, would be on the Miami Heat to win the finals right now. They're not in a bad position. This is a series that's tied. They're going back home. And the Miami Heat are just that. They are this team who goes up and down. It's hard to predict them. People kind of disrespect them, but then they just prove it again, right? And they just win. They just keep on winning. This is the first place team in the East for a reason. So I still think that there's a chance, maybe less of a probability than the Golden State Warriors, but there's a chance that the Miami Heat could still survive all this storm on the East and end up winning the NBA Finals with that exceptional defense. If anybody can shut down the Golden State Warriors when they get in rhythm, it is the Miami defense. So that might not be a bad look, but I'm not looking at any futures at this point.
Well, the futures are pretty interesting because Jimmy Butler has shorter odds to win MVP than the Heat does to win the finals. Heat plus 500, Butler is plus 400. But if you're going to take Warriors, I think you get a much better value with Curry at plus 100 or 110 rather than taking Warriors minus 145. So that one I feel comfortable with. If I do feel like it's going to be Warriors, I'd take Curry as MVP. But do you look at it that way? Because I think it's so interesting because Celtics, their odds are plus 230, and then you get Jason Tatum plus 450. But Butler has, it's better to take Miami to win the finals than to take Butler as MVP.
Yeah, it's a really smart look, and I think it's a smart look at Steph Curry too. If you're getting plus money with him to win MVP, these MVP awards, it's still a media thing, right? Everybody loves Steph Curry. It's hard not to like Steph Curry. He's a good guy. He changed the game. He's a really, really entertaining player. And if anyone's going to win MVP, it's probably going to be him. We've seen Andrew Wiggins step up in some of these games. We've seen Draymond Green do fantastic things on defense, but those defensive players are rarely celebrated. And this is a huge spot for players like Andrew Wiggins or Jordan Poole or even Klay Thompson, who, Klay is still a great player, but he's definitely lost a step. I mean, when you injure your knee a few times, your legs a few times, it's going to slow you down. So the probability is that if you think the Warriors are going to win the finals, to take Steph as MVP, I think that's a really sharp move.
All right, Chris, it's been fun talking NBA with you. I know you're probably getting ready for NFL as well. Are you still waiting on that, or you getting a little NFL studying in?
I'm getting a little bit in now. We're going to do a podcast with my Circa partner tomorrow, I believe, and we're going to handicap the first week of the NFL, which is going to be really fun because it's going to feel like we're, in the NFL season. God, I wish we were, because the product that we're seeing for some of these NBA playoff games is just, I need better. So hopefully we get some better games. The NFL almost always brings the heat, so I can't wait to the NFL. I could talk NFL with you guys anytime. You just let me know.
Well, I wanted to ask your opinion on this, Chris. So you're in the Circa contest. It's 5 picks a week. You say you have a partner. How do you break up the games? How do you break up the selections? Do you do 2, and then you guys decide on 1? You do 3 and 2. How do you go about it every week?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think one of the things that helped us do really well last year is that we have a lot of the same thoughts about a lot of these games, right? I mean, we're both NFC East fans. I'm a Giants fan. He's an Eagles guy. Somehow we're friends. I don't know. But it all works out, and we can challenge each other in different ways. But I think we end up agreeing on the same thing. So week to week, it's never like 2-2-1. It's just we kind of talk through it on the podcast. We get all of our thoughts out there without giving away our picks. And then we just keep on talking throughout the week. But usually at the end of the podcast, we have a solid 2 to 3, sometimes 4 games that we really align on. So from that point on, it's just about having conversation, picking those final 2 games. And I will say, I think the reason why Steve and I, and you can follow Steve at Bobo Bets on Twitter. I think the reason why Steve and I work really well together is because we bet the NFL the wrong way for such a long time, right? If there's week 8 of the NFL, Steve and I probably have like 20 bets, So to be able to only have to pick 5 games is actually a real luxury for us. And I think, because we're used to so much exposure, having to filter down just those 5 games, it feels really sharp. So hopefully we can keep that going, guys, because that was quite a year that we had last year. Really tough to repeat in Circa. I mean, these are some of the best handicappers in the world who are going at it every year. And as I understand it, the pot is even bigger this year. So it's pretty exciting.
So you're telling me that you placed 5th in Circa by betting the wrong way. Did you come? Did you come that way? Did you start betting this way when you won that 5th place, or was it before that?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the mistakes that I've made in the past. Steve and I have we love sports. We love the sports bet. We love the NFL, but I think we've had to learn a lot of our betting lessons the hard way. We had too much exposure. We were thinking with a lot of hubris, I think, that we just understood the NFL on a deeper level than we did, especially from the betting perspective. So through years and years, I think both of us approached it the same way, just going as hard as possible. And then last year, just really filtering our process a little bit, sharpening those tools and that analysis. And that goes across the spectrum, right? Evaluating some of those intangibles. Like I remember when the Las Vegas Raiders, after John Madden died, they were playing at home and they were facing a team, I forget who, but they were facing a team that they didn't want to pick the Raiders, right? But we were all over the Raiders that week because we agreed that's a spot where the Raiders are going to play the best brand of basketball or of football, excuse me. So things like that we really align on, and I think that helps. We think more about the psychology of the sport too, which in the NFL it could be so crazy. So some of those like intangible angles, I think that maybe not everyone's thinking about, can really help you out.
I'm looking at this now, Chris. This year, 5th place is $300,000. What did you win last year?
Yeah, that amps me up, Kevin. Jeez, yeah, we won 114K, which was, hey, I'm not complaining about that. But yeah, 300, man, that.
How close were you to first place?
Well, I'll put it this way: if the Cleveland Browns cover in Week 18, we're either in first or second, I think. So
I want to tell you something, Chris. That was the game, right, that they played the Bengals, and that was Burrow didn't play. I remember I had the Browns, and who was it? Case Keenum started quarterback, right?
Yeah, and Browns were -6, I think.
And they had an opportunity at the end, and then the Bengals scored a touchdown to cover, or it was something like that, where the Browns were in control of that game, right?
Yeah, now you make me want to look it up because I know the.
Oh, I thought you would have it like right off the top of your head. Yeah, I remember that game when Keenum went in.
Yeah, that was I don't know, I can't bring it up now, but yeah, that I was in Atlantic City with Steve watching that, and Steve actually left, like he stopped watching because he just thought that we lost. We were just about to lose like 4 games that day. We ended up going 4-1 in Week 18, but yeah, that was about the 3rd time last season where we bet on the Browns to cover a line, and they just totally screwed us. So I don't know how much we're going to bet the Browns this season.
It was Brandon Allen with a touchdown pass.
Yeah, I think it was -6 Browns, wasn't it?
It was 21-10 with 2.5 to go. Brandon Allen threw a touchdown pass, and I think that was on 4th down.
They lost by 5. It was 16-21. Oh, I'm looking at
with the final.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they were a 6-point favorite. So that sometimes that's how the ball bounces. But also the Bills should not have covered that game, and they scored some garbage time points at the end of that one, and they covered that. So that actually, the pendulum swings, right? But if there's one team that sticks out that we should not have been picking as much as we were, it was the Browns. The Browns were in some ideal spots last year, and they just did not step up. I'm a big Baker Mayfield hater, so I could talk about that all day if you want. I think he's absolute trash. So why did we pick the Browns with Baker Mayfield? I don't know, but probably because they were prime spots, right? And sometimes you have to go against the players you don't like. But
I wasn't a big Mayfield fan when he planted the flag at Ohio State, but I will say, do you think that all the hate on him is warranted? I mean, I always say Cleveland has the most faithful fan base. I love that they could have the most losing football team and they will never deny their loyalty to the Browns, but they completely turned on Baker and he went in there, did a lot. He was playing injured. What do you think he deserved? They just completely flipped on him and then they go and get Deshaun Watson. So do you think that the hate was deserved?
I don't know. I don't know if the hate is ever deserved to the extent that the fans give out the hate. But Baker Mayfield, when he first came into the league, I was excited to see him play because I could tell that he had a moxie to him. He had a toughness to him. But then as I continued to watch him play, when he went to the Browns, he has this sense about his ego. It seems, at least, that one, he's way more athletic than he really is. I mean, he can't outrun these 300-pound defensive tackles in the NFL. Like, it's just not going to happen. And he thinks that he can, and then he gets injured. Shocker. So that's one thing. I mean, he's a pretty precise passer, but we've seen him in some of these big game situations just totally blow a ton of passes. And the overarching point that I always make about Baker and the Browns is that Cleveland Browns team, especially last year, you could not ask for a more talented, stacked team in the NFL. I mean, they had the best running game in the NFL, 2 number 1 running backs, right? They had Odell until they gave him up. I mean, Jarvis Landry, an unbelievable offensive line, a great defense. So there's like no excuses for the Browns to ever lose. You can blame the coaching, you can blame Stefanski, I guess, but Baker just didn't do enough. I mean, there's no circumstance where a quarterback with a real pedigree would have lost as much, especially in those end of game situations, as Baker Mayfield. So I tried to defend him for a little while, but nah. I mean, you can't be a quarterback on a team that stacked and have those kind of results. I mean, that speaks on of itself, right?
What do you guys make of this photo that surfaced implying that maybe, so it's him and his wife and they're holding up a beer for a brewery in Washington. So do you think that he could be going to Seattle?
Everyone thinks he's going to Seattle. I don't love that for Seattle, but I really can't wait to see that if that happens, because Russell Wilson, in my opinion, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever do it, has been playing without an offensive line for like 10 years. Baker Mayfield's about to go to a team that has you talk about a swing in the pendulum. He went from maybe the best offensive line in the NFL to maybe the worst, if not one of the worst, if not the worst in the NFL, if he goes to Seattle. Let's see how Baker Mayfield does under that kind of pressure. I don't think that's going to be a very good result.
Well, Chris, we appreciate it as always, and definitely good luck in the Circa. That should be a lot of fun. I mean, you got a lot of pressure on you this year to finish in the top 5 again.
I do, but I'm definitely going to do more than one entry this time, so that's exciting. Although I don't know, should I change my process at all? Because we had exactly one entry last year. I don't know.
That's wild.
Yeah,
I would go for at least 3.
I like it.
You got the money to pay for it? What is that? Is it $1,500 an entry, I think?
Yeah, I mean, we just bought a new house here, so I got a little less money than I used to. But I'm gonna make sure that I gravel up the money for that. There's no way that I can't play Circa now for the rest of my life. I mean,
are you doing the Survivor also, or no?
I am going to do the Survivor, and of course, these were in lower leagues. But as my friends tell me, Chris, you've never lost a Survivor. Like the past 5 years, I've won a Survivor, but these are like neighborhood leagues. So I'm expecting a uptick in the competition, but I have to play Circus Survivor too. Yeah, have to.
All right, so you'll be busy. That's gonna be a fun fall for you. So Chris Farley Bet. You can find him on Twitter, and he has joined us a lot recently on the Daily Insider. And we appreciate all of his analysis and his insight. Chris, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, guys, as always.
All right, there is Chris Farley, and always good talking to him. I like where he comes from. I'll tell you this though. You know what, Stephanie? Finish 5th in the Circa is extremely impressive.
Yeah. When I always joke with him that I'm like, oh, I discovered you. And I saw that stat and I didn't realize how many people submit. And he did one entry. That is wild. And now like to repeat that, I think just even placing in the top 25, 100, that would even be hard to repeat after finishing 3rd with one entry. That is wild. That is remarkable.
Usually you need the breaks, and you get down to the end. And one thing we didn't ask him, I mean, you talk about that Week 18 game with the Bengals and the Browns, and it's just getting to that Week 18, all the pressure. If you need to win a few games where teams have locked up playoff spots, you're kind of like, okay, what do we get to? Some teams have no motivation. How do we get 5? How do we get to 5 games for the week? But it's look, and the other thing too is I think it's crazy. I don't want to say crazy like that, but when there are people that obviously either do it alone or they do the partner, or maybe there's a group of 5 people that all split the money, split the entry to get in and say, okay, all of you are responsible for one pick. That's it. The pressure on you to do that. I don't know. Would you like to have a partner or would you want to do it alone? Because I feel like I'd want to do it alone because I wouldn't want someone else, if it didn't work out, I feel like I'd blame them. Or if it went the opposite way, I wasn't doing well, it'd be like, oh, well, you're the problem.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I think that when it comes to money, like, they always say don't go into business with your best friend or something.
Yeah.
Like, I do think it'd be tricky because it's like if one of the partners, they're winning and then the other they're the one that keeps messing up. Like, should you go 50-50? That's where it would be tough. So if I were to mess up, like, I want it to be completely on my own. Like, I wouldn't want to be the weakest link of the team, So especially when you're like up at that competitive, at that rank, I wouldn't want the responsibility of being the weakest link. And then if you are the one who's carrying the team, that's not the best feeling either, So I think it's just, I can be an indecisive person, but I would want to just be completely responsible for all my picks, whether they're good or bad. Like, I just want complete responsibility for it and not have to put it on someone else.
I did the Westgate contest in 2015, I think. And the way it works is you got to go out to Nevada and you have to get a proxy. You got to sign up with someone and they get all the information and then you submit your picks to them. You email them, you text them, whatever the case is. And then they have to do it. Yeah. So you can't just like enter it online. Like they have to do it for you in person. And I went out there, I did it. And, these services, they nail it. Like they're not going to mess around. Like you have to pay them a little fee, but they put it on time. Never a problem. The first week I was so concerned about like, okay, first week of the season, got to start off hot. I think I went 2 and 3. I'm like, I'm in the toilet already. Like you got to go 4-1 out of the gate or 5-0 to have a real shot.
Yeah. You can't just get like a late. Yeah. You can't do a late lap, Yeah. And then it's not even fun to follow anymore. So I do think it'd be smart to have like maybe do your own bracket, then do one with some friends, mix it up because then if like that one's doing bad, you still got one to fall back on, Yeah.
I mean,
that's a good way to do it.
Look, and you're spending a lot of money to do this. So you're saying, okay, I want this to be worth it. I don't want to be out by like week 4. And all of a sudden I just spent $1,500 on something I'm playing for 3 weeks. But it's tough. It really is. And I'd rather do it myself personally. I know a lot of people that have, a partner. I don't know. I just would always feel some kind of, I would have done it like this, but you decided to go like this. I'd rather just have the blame all myself. That's just me.
Do you know anyone that has placed that high? I mean, Chris
honestly,
is the only
no.
one I know. Yeah,
No,
Chris
that's
is the
not
only one I
true.
know.
That's not true. There's someone I actually there's a guy that we had out on our panel a few years ago, Steve Fezzik, who's a very known gambler, and he finished at the top of Westgate a few times, I think. But the Circa is relatively new. As far as someone finishing this high with Chris, no, that's the highest I've.
And that's what's so interesting because I mean, Chris, like he does work on this, but like for some people, like you have professional handicappers, and then you have people who don't do this all day long. Like this
Right.
is our job looking at all of these lines. I can't imagine the people who do work a 9 to 5 and then go and do this and place that high. So
it's hard. It is really
it's just
hard
like the joke
to,
with the March Madness brackets where it's usually, you know, like the mom or the sister of the group who just picks the teams by their mascots or something. And then that's the one who wins. Usually that's how like the March Madness brackets work. But there's so much analysis and skill that goes into this because I mean, his record is still consistent. So it's just like, and he said he was doing it wrong. That's the thing that is the craziest about it all. He was putting one submission in and literally like said he was doing it wrong. Usually you have people who are trying to put in as much opportunity as they can. So that, I mean, that's so wild to me. That's so wild.
It's great. It really is. And those contests are so popular. And
how much is it to like how much do you think people spend submitting to
I think it was $1,500 an entry last year, I believe.
Yeah.
1,500. I forgot what it was. And also you have the Survivor, which is just picking one team every week. So imagine spending like $1,000.
That would be more stressful. Picking one team.
But it's straight up though. So at least.
Actually, what do you think? Because like they're like, I'm thinking of like the Cardinals, for example, the first half of the season. Or like you could just ride the wave of one team.
No, I think you use them and lose them. You use them once and they're done.
Oh wow!
So yeah, so it's not like you could say, okay, I'm gonna keep taking.
You have to look at every single week before you even go into it because it's like you don't want to use that that team on this week if you had a better one. I would just take every team when they're going up against like the Jaguars.
Well, that's the point. Is that take a team when they're playing the Jets or the Jags or the Lions or something like that.
Well, then what week do you pick the Jags?
Save them for I don't know. I don't. It's
like Houston, maybe I don't know. Like
it's a hard one. It seems easy on the surface. Then when you lose like week 1 or week 2, you're like, oh, this isn't that easy. It's actually way more difficult.
Yeah, that's so much strategy. I think. Which one would you rather do? 1 game a week or 5? I think 5.
I think I'd rather do the 1. Just concentrate, find the 1 game, isolate the 1 game.
I don't
like
this
one. But the good news is with that, it's survive in advance. Where the other one, you need to have. I mean, I understand you have to win every week in the Survivor, but it's only 1. But the other one with the 5 a week, if you have 3 subpar weeks, you're shot. You know, you need to be like 13-2 out of the gate.
I wonder, like, they should like give out bonuses if you were on a streak or something.
There's some bonus structure in there. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but there's some bonus structure. Depending on like if you win like the first half or if you win like the first quarter or something, I believe you get a little extra. So,
or if you win like 5 weeks in a row or something, you should get like a mile mark. Like you've achieved, it's like gaming. You've achieved this goal. Here's this check.
If you go in 5 straight weeks in that, that's pretty impressive. If you could,
that would be wild.
But anyway, so all right, so another show in the books, and you will be back with me, Stephanie. Or actually, yeah, we'll be back together on Friday, right?
Friday, yep.
Friday. So we'll
hopefully there's no like we still have some NBA games. Like hopefully no one's getting. Hopefully the Mavs aren't swept.
Well, we would have. What's today?
I think we're definitely gonna have
by
Friday.
We'll have Heat,
Celtics
definitely
have
Friday.
Celtics and Heat. That'd be game
Thursday. Yeah.
6.
Game 6. Game 5 is tomorrow on Wednesday. So see how it goes, and at least we'll have 1 more game. Maybe if the Mavs win, we'll have 2. So keep those fingers crossed. So we shall see. So our thanks to Chris Farley for joining us. Farley Bets, always good stuff out of him. For Stephanie Otey, I am Kevin Rogers. We'll be back coming up tomorrow at noon Eastern here on the Daily Insider, right here on Vegas Insider. And as always, before I step aside, best of luck with your bets. Almost forgot that. Best of luck with your bets.